Hey guys, Adam Savage here in my cave with a show and tell that is an interesting bit of history for a very specific population in America. The advent of these things, these phones, these black mirrors that we carry around, has meant that wayfinding is far easier than it used to be. If you grew up on the East Coast and you had relatives that lived like in Vermont or New Hampshire, man, the directions to get to their house could be intense. Even today, using GPS to move around the East Coast can be fraught because the East Coast is where we invented roads in America, right? Like they all were based on cow paths over there. And so you have just trying to use GPS to get out of New York City was a nightmare for me, just because it's like there's a highway called 9 and there's 9A, there's 9B, there's 9BC, there's 9B South, there's 9B North, there's 9B West. Like, it's nuts. Once you get to California and you have the beauty of unbroken clover leaves and freeway on and off ramps, we've like sorted out driving out here for better and for worse. Let's be clear. But yes, we no longer use maps to get around. We use our phones. We use our computers. We use our cars. They tell us where to go. And that's great. Like, I love that. I am somewhat directionally challenged. And that's largely because I don't pay attention as I'm moving around a space. My partner, my wife, Mrs. Don't Try This, is remarkably directionally not challenged. Like, you drop her into any part of the world and she'd be like, that's north, that's south. She's just like, she has a preternatural ability to know where she is. And I went on a road trip in 2018, 2017, 2016, even maybe. I'm trying to, it doesn't matter. I don't know why I'm wasting your time. I went on a road trip with my sons, Thing 1 and Thing 2, in the teens, the aughts, the later aughts. No, they're not the later aughts. Sorry, I apologize for wasting so much time about when this happened. I went on a cross-country drive with my sons, and one of the lovely things about driving across America is that your cell phone reception is actually quite poor in many spaces, which is great when you're driving a couple of teenagers because they can't just sit on their phones and they got to sort of look out the window. And then you hand them the atlas and ask them to find where you are, and it's really, really fun. Driving cross country with them with a road atlas, which I traced our route on, it was super awesome. And we go on road trips. When my wife and I go on road trips, we bring a map because there's a physicalization to the map that just cannot quite equate to here. There's a situational awareness you can get from a map that is really difficult to get from a computer screen or from a surfable map. Yeah. And as a science communicator, I was saying a couple of weeks ago that science communication is about creating narrative drama out of scale. And that's true, but that's only part of science communication. Another part of science communication, and I don't know how many parts I'm going to end up with in my head, but another part of science communication is physicalizing the science for you. When you understand something in your body, you really, really understand it. And a map physicalizes the topography of the world in a way that this still can't quite. I don't know, maybe when I'm wearing Apple Vision, it's going to be even better. Hopefully better than just green arrows everywhere. You know, when you're looking at a map, you are looking at your surroundings. You're understanding where you place in relation to other things, random things, not just what's at the edge of your screen. I really want to be clear. I am not lamenting the fact that these mean that we use them for wayfinding. I don't lament that. I love that addition to the world. And I also acknowledge that maps provide a vital physicalization of the topography of the world around us that these don't yet or ever will, maybe. I don't know. But I'm shooting this video to talk about a specific map. I moved to San Francisco in 1990, August of 1990. And very quickly after I moved to San Francisco, I found myself driving to Los Angeles a lot. And that drive between here and there, which there's 3 routes. There's 101, there's the 5. Well, I guess, oh, right. There's the 101, there's the 5, and then there's the 1. The 1 is the coastal route that goes all the way down the coast of California. It's a long way. 101 is generally about 7 or 8 hours if you're going at a medium pace. And Route 5 is a surrealist masterpiece. It is like 300 miles of straight road. It is a Zen koan as a road. And, you know, when I was first driving to LA, I had to call my sister beforehand and she'd give me, okay, take the 5 to the 405 to the 10, get on Washington, head out towards the ocean and make a left at she lived on the canals in Venice. So I internalized those driving directions, 5 to the 405 to the 10 to Washington out to the ocean and then left into the canals. And that's what we had to do. I don't mean this to be like we walked to school uphill both ways. But if you lived in Los Angeles when I was first driving there, I guarantee you had this thing in your car. And Los Angelinos, I bet a lot of Los Angelinos still have this in their car. And it's the magic of the Thomas Guide. Now, yeah, right. I mean, I remember being the navigator for Davey, and he's like, okay, look over there and then find me where we're going. And I accidentally tore a page out of his Thomas Guide, and he was so mad. These were these were not cheap. $25 in 1993 dollars. That's an expensive thing. But this is every road in LA. And LA is, as advertised, LA is ginormous. And another ginormous city, London, I don't know how big London is compared to LA, but they are both gargantuan urban areas. And in London, when you want to be a taxi driver, you have to train, and you train for a long time. I don't know exactly how long, whether it's a year or 2 years or what. But you train on a bicycle. They give you addresses and you got to go find them on a bicycle. And you do this repeatedly, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times until, as a British taxi driver, you have memorized. Memorization isn't really the right phrase, because it's not just memorization. You have internalized the topography of London and its traffic patterns. And when you have done that as a British taxi driver, you get what they call the knowledge. The knowledge is the term for when a British taxi driver has completed their training. They've got the knowledge. They have it in their head. And for the most part, I believe this is still true. A British taxi driver can get you to your location faster than Uber or Waze or any other mapping software because they know the city in a much more intimate and problem-solving fashion than a piece of mapping software does. So Los Angelinos, when you wanted to visit a friend up in Laurel Canyon, you had to be like, first you lived with the index. You had to go to the index. You had to find the street. Look at this. Every frickin' street in LA. You had to find which number on the street you were looking for. And LA has street numbers that are regularly 5 digits long. Then you found the page 950H2. And you would go and you would okay, here we go. Oh, wow. Christ. Okay, 950. Where's 950? Here we go. 7, 8. Oh. See, it went right from 825 to 3296. I am not highly experienced at reading the Thomas Guide. My wife moved to LA in 1993 and recently asked me to pick her this up on eBay because she wanted to experience that deep nostalgia of how of how important this tome was in the back of your car. If your car got robbed and they took your Thomas guide, they were real bastards. Like, getting robbed in and of itself, that's just sort of the cost of owning a car in an urban city. But getting robbed and they took your Thomas guide, evil, absolute evil. And it wasn't just like you could look up LA. LA has lots of grids, but it also has lots of non-grids. All of the canyons are like, well, you've got your main canyon routes, and then you've got all your little tributaries and capillaries into the canyons, into Laurel Canyon, etc. This was how you picked your way up into there. It was the only way. And if you were alone, you regularly kept having to pull over and reorient yourself where you were on this, because you couldn't look at this while you were driving. And if you had a navigator, they had to be on it. Your navigator, basically getting where you needed to go was a thing in Los Angeles. And this was how that thing was achieved. I love maps. I love all the esoterica around maps. I love how long we've been making them. I love that for the longest time, maps of the actual world were state secrets, carefully protected, and maps still are. I love paper streets. You know what a paper street is? So Thomas Guide. Thomas is a map maker company. I think they're still around, Thomas Brothers Maps, since 1915. They didn't just make the Thomas Guide for Los Angeles, but when you are in Los Angeles and you say the Thomas Guide, you only mean the one for Los Angeles. But as a map making company, they come up with their intellectual property is the completeness of their map. And they don't want other people to take their maps and copy them. They rightfully feel like no other map company should be able to benefit off of our sweat equity built into making our maps accurate. And this is copyright, right? This is how you protect copyright. So what map companies do is they include on maps fake streets that don't exist. Now, that's never going to mess you up when you need the map, because you don't ever need to go to a fake street. They're called paper streets, and they are what do you call it? They're analog DRM. They're ways in which map companies could tell that other map companies might be stealing from them, might be stealing their maps. In fact, Paper Street, the last fact I have about Paper Street is that the house that they built for Ed Norton and his friend in Fight Club was called the Paper Street house because they built it from scratch. They built a whole narrative around that house. It's really, watch some behind the scenes about Fight Club and that house. It's an amazing set. It was built practically, and it's a stunner of a set. And yeah, it's called the Paper Street house. I would love to hear some of your memories about using the Thomas Guide in Los Angeles back in the 90s. It really does give me nostalgia to see this really, and there were other covers. I think there's more of specifically a color that Julia was looking for that we couldn't find, but like, dude, this was how you got around, and every visit you might have to make to a doctor or to a friend would include a deep dive into this book through its index, through its pages, cross-referencing, doing this. And, oh, there's the street. Such a freaking thing. Amazing. That's it. 14 minutes of me waxing on about something not about making, but I love me maps. I love maps in general. I love maps in fiction. I love maps in reality. And I love analog navigation. So thanks for joining me on this excursion re-analog navigation. Tell me your stories of using this in Los Angeles in the 90s. Thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Hey guys, Adam Savage from Tested here. If you've ever seen the 6-inch ruler in inches and centimeters on my forearm and wanted one of your own, but you didn't want it to be permanent, well, today's your lucky day. You can now buy temporary tattoos of my measuring stick,
my measuring forearm, at tested-store.com. Comes like this, goes on in about 30 seconds with a little water. The instructions are on the back. It comes off with rubbing alcohol, and hopefully it warms you up to the idea of permanently attaching a measuring device to your body, because I use mine every single day.